Hi, Timothy Carlson here, and the Super Mario Bros. Movie has finally come out, and it's actually a good movie. I was pleasantly surprised, and I know that this movie was made for longtime gamers like me, and of course, given how much money this is going to make, I think a sequel is inevitable. So today I'm going to be naming my top 10 picks for the characters I would most like to see in a sequel to the Super Mario Bros. Movie. There will be minor spoilers for the Super Mario Bros. Movie here, so don't watch this video if you haven't watched the movie and you don't want anything spoiled. Let's go ahead and get started. And I'm not limiting this to games, I'm also including other media here to some extent, so let's get started. Really digging deep for number 10 at the bottom of the list, and that's Udtar the Cave Boy. This character is not from a game, he only appeared in the Super Mario World cartoon, voiced by John Stocker, who had voiced Toad in the previous two Mario cartoons. Given that Yoshi's going to play a role in the sequel based on the post-credits scene of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, there's a good bet our heroes might be going to Dinosaur World. And if that's the case, it's possible to follow the blueprint of the Super Mario World cartoon and have cavemen, and Udtar, of course, would be an interesting ally for our heroes to have should their second adventure take them there. Number 9 on our list, we're going with Gino from Super Mario RPG. Gino is part of a race of extraterrestrials that maintain and protect the Star Road, which is the cosmic entity responsible for the granting of wishes. When the Star Road is broken, no more wishes are being granted, so Gino comes down to the Mushroom Kingdom, and since he doesn't have a human body, takes on the form of a doll that a kid is playing with. And he becomes a pretty powerful magic user and ally to Mario and company. A very underrated ally to our heroes that I'd love to see get some love on the big screen. At number 8 on the list, I have Professor Egad. This is just sort of a minor character, but he does play a role in some of Mario's and Luigi's biggest adventures as well. He first appeared in the series being the creator of the poltergust vacuum in Luigi's Mansion. We may be getting a Luigi's Mansion movie eventually based on some of Luigi's scenes in the movie, and so Professor Egad, of course, would have to invent the poltergust to help out Luigi. Likewise, he also invented the Flood, the dowsing device used by Mario in Super Mario Sunshine. So Professor Egad could easily fit into this potential new Mario cinematic universe. At number 7, I have some great villains that I'd love to see Mario and company take on the big screen. The Axum Rangers. In Super Mario RPG, they were part of the Smithy Gang, the main villains. Essentially, they're a parody of Super Sentai, or as we call it in the United States, Power Rangers. And these are 5 characters that each have a special ability, and they're some of the hardest opponents in the game. Imagining the cinematic incarnation of Mario and company going up against these guys could make for some pretty interesting entertainment. At number 6, a potential villain, and we're going even deeper into the vault again, Tatenga. Who remembers Tatenga? Probably not too many people, but he was the main villain in Super Mario Land for the Game Boy. He also appeared as a level boss in Super Mario Land 2, the sequel. He was also the villain of the short-lived Game Boy comic book series. An extraterrestrial warlord come to battle Mario, and of course he'd kidnapped Princess Daisy, Super Mario Land also being Princess Daisy's first appearance. So having him come in as the villain would be interesting, or even having him team up with Bowser, or better yet, would make for an interesting sequel to say the least. Number 5 on the list, I have Rosalina. Rosalina, of course, introduced as a princess in Super Mario Galaxy, who becomes a new ally to Mario, helping him with his quest there. This character has been showing up in a lot more Mario media ever since the release of Super Mario Galaxy. She's even been playable as a kart racer in the Super Mario Kart games. There's also even a baby version of her that's playable. So I do have a feeling she's someone we might see on the big screen eventually. At number 4, I have Toadette. Now, Toadette can be seen on a banner in the movie, but I'm not really counting that because that's more of a cameo than an actual appearance, but she could be sort of an interesting ally or potential love interest to Toad, and that would be an interesting thing, especially considering the Toad we got on the big screen is something of a fighter, even if he's not necessarily the best at. And Toadette would give us another great, female hero to go along with the rest of the cast. At number 3 on the list, another great addition to the villains roster, the Koopalings. Bowser's 7 children that first appeared in Super Mario 3. Now, of course, Shigeru Miyamoto has come out and said that supposedly they're not really Bowser's kids. He just kind of looked after them and raised them to be evil. So that's debatable, but honestly, regardless of their origin, what you believe about where they came from, I think they could be great enemies. Each one's got their own abilities, own style of battling Mario. They've got their own magic wands. I think they could really make things a nightmare in the Mushroom Kingdom for our heroes in the sequel film. And number 2 on the list, someone I'm actually pretty surprised didn't show up in the movie, Princess Daisy. Daisy, of course, like I said earlier, first appeared in Super Mario Land on the Game Boy, in which Mario had to rescue her. She could be a nice addition to this universe. Maybe our heroes could go to Sarasa Land for the sequel, possibly, helping her in battling Tatenga and some of those other villains. And then, of course, she could possibly even be a potential love interest for Luigi. Since we didn't get enough Luigi love in the first movie, that would be a good way to go. And my number 1 pick for a character that was not in the first movie that I think absolutely needs to be in the sequel, Wario. Wario, of course, introduced in Super Mario Land 2 for the Game Boy as the main antagonist, having kicked Mario out of his castle, leading Mario to go to several different lands to eventually have to get in there and take back his castle. Wario is an interesting character because it's almost like he's a rival to Mario, not so much just like the big bad like Bowser, but more of a contemporary rival. Wario hasn't really had an origin story in the games, at least not that I know of. But I mean, he was such a popular character. They made a lot of Wario Land games that didn't even include Mario. But it might be interesting to delve into his backstory, see what he's all about, and see what makes him clash with Mario. And that's it for my list. I mean, there's so many great characters in Mario lore for about 40 plus years. And I'm sure there's tons that you'd love to see in the next movie. Who do you want to see in the movie that wasn't on this list? Comment down below and let me know what you think. Also, remember to subscribe to this channel for more content. I'm always posting new videos. And be sure you give this one a like if you found it helpful. I'm Taylor T. Carlson. I'll see you next time.